Councillors Southgate, Councillors Holden, Councillors Gretton and Councillors McLean. Are there any apologies for absence? I don't think so. We're waiting for Councillor Edith McCauley to join us. Are there any declarations of interest? There being none, we can move on. We now come to the third item, and that's the minutes of our meeting held on the 7th of September. Are there any dissenters to approving those minutes? There being none, those minutes are approved. I turn to item 4, the consultation on a draft new local plan. Councillor Martin Welton.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I lost my document. Sorry about this. There is. Sorry about that. Thank you, Chair. This report recommends the local plan's draft planning policies and recommends that Cabinet delegates the approval of the final documents for at least 9 weeks of public consultation to run from the 30th of October 2020 to the 11th of January 2021. At the current time, public consultation on the local plan will be exclusively digital and involves using software using the Council's U mapping system. To ensure that our consultation is easier for our residents and others to access, to navigate and to understand what is proposed for any particular neighbourhood, it will be interactive. Some people may also have used this technology in the recent housing and character surveys, which actually resulted in increased levels of engagement. This will be the second round of stage 2 consultation on the local plan, and a summary of the planning direction changes accompanies this report. While many of the policies have been strengthened by evidence and response to the previous consultations, there aren't any significant changes in policy direction set out in the original plan. It also takes into account changes to permitted development which happened on the 1st of September, which allows greater flexibility for high street businesses, shops, offices, cafes, restaurants, banks, etc. To convert to other uses. These are outlined in the policy changes part of the paper. However, all planning policies, site allocations and land designations have to be reviewed to ensure that they are factually correct under the U changes, and this review is still underway. As a council, we are also well aware of the impact that COVID-19 restrictions have placed on this borough since March 2020. It has in many instances seen an acceleration in the rate of change, especially in relation to online delivery and a move away from the high street. But with those changes, it has also resulted in a strongly increased demand for Merton's industrial space. In those 6 months, we've been living with the devastating effects of COVID-19. The extent of the impact on the development industry on the way we live our lives are still to be fully known. We are not at this stage recommending that Merton's local plan be reorganised to take account of the myriad of different predictions. However, we will obviously closely review this plan in its final stages. It is also important as well to clarify that Merton's local plan has not been changed to take on board the government's Planning for the Future white paper. This consultation closes on the 29th of October and proposes a complete overhaul of the English planning system, including how local infrastructure and affordable housing might be funded. This is a white paper which does cause me deep concerns, and we will obviously be making representations as a council on this white paper. As Cabinet member, I have considerable concerns in terms of the democratic accountability which will result from the planning white paper. We do hope that the government will see sense. Previous responses to the consultation are set out in this report, and there is also a summary of evidence provided. As a local plan, it also has to be in accordance with the Mayor's London plan, which is still to be finalised. The Mayor of London has received the independent inspector's report and has issued an intent to publish the local plan to the Secretary of State. The Secretary of State is the final arbitrator whether the plan can be published or not. As colleagues may be aware, the main source of disagreement is how many homes will be needed in each borough over the next decade, which is disaggregated to each borough's local housing target. Feedback from the consultation will also inform the local plan, so there is still opportunities for alternatives to be considered and taken forward where these are justified. In terms of the next steps, we will be consulting on this plan until from the end of this month to the 11th of January. Then we'll obviously have the consultation will finish and consider all representations made. In the spring of 2021, we will have the pre-submission publications before its examination in public. Following that, we do aim for this report to be submitted to the Secretary of State to be approved in the winter of 2021. Finally, I'd like to add my appreciation to the work of all the officers who have helped put together the local plan, in particular Tara Butler, but also her team as well. There has been a significant amount of work, but this will frame planning policy in Merton going forward. I formally move the report and recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Welton, for that report. I now turn to our Director of Environment and Regeneration, Chris Lee. Did you want to add anything, or does Paul McGarry want to add anything?
I've got nothing to add, Chair, but we're happy to answer any questions members may have.
Okay, thank you very much. I now turn to Cabinet members. Are there any Cabinet contributions on this item? Okay, well, thank you, Councillor Welton, for that report. As you said, we're recommending that we approve the consultation from the 30th of October through to the 11th of January, and that we are delegating approval to the Director in consultation with your good self, Councillor Welton. So we have recommendations A and B. This is item 4 of our Cabinet meeting today. Are there any dissenters to the approval of recommendations A and B? There being none, we are accepting recommendations A and B on item 4. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 5, and that's the adoption of future Wimbledon supplementary planning document, what we call the SPD. Councillor Martin Welton again.
Thank you, Chair. I formally move the report and recommendations. Recent years have seen a large number of planning applications being submitted for office, hotel and residential development in Wimbledon Town Centre, as well as general improvements to existing buildings. Wimbledon is a successful town centre with a strong business community and employment sector, as well as residents who support the town and enjoy the facilities Wimbledon Town Centre has to offer. The future Wimbledon supplementary planning document creates the vision for the town centre, which responds to changing needs, but also at the same time protecting Wimbledon's characteristics whilst promoting growth and investment. As a supplementary planning document, it provides guidance specific to the town centre for the design of development of public spaces. Wimbledon as a centre is a balance between a residential centre along with retaining a strong commercial base, with 13,000 jobs in the town centre and hundreds of businesses. As a town centre, we rely on business to sustain the number of shops, leisure and restaurants. A strong employment sector is key to its success, and without it, it will be a town centre in decline, which is not a sustainable future. Whilst the focus is on planning application, it illustrates a long-term vision for Wimbledon's built environment into the 2040s. The vision is focused on the qualities of place, good public realm, better and coordinated design, and supports a more flexible mix of town centre uses. When the SPD was originally drafted, it was a plan for managing growth. The context in which this guidance now sits has shifted dramatically. In the short to medium term, it will guide the recovery of Wimbledon Town Centre, with an emphasis on quality and the experience of place, leading to long-term growth and transformation. We need to be clear as a council on the nature of the town centre, the uses that contributes towards its vibrant and successful commercial offer, but also how this integrates with the existing residential communities, including the quality of design. Architectural design lies at the heart of successful places, and underpins good growth. Wimbledon is also incredibly lucky in being an internationally known brand through the tennis and the prestige of SW19. We're also incredibly lucky in having excellent transport links. Wimbledon Station is the 23rd busiest in the country, but also the 2nd busiest in outer London. And we are, of course, unique in Merton in having all 4 forms of transport: tube, train, tram, and bus, which enhances further its connection. The Future Wimbledon Supplementary Planning document was created through a process of workshop engagement and refining the priorities to form a vision and framework, both for buildings and public spaces. Since the close of the Future Wimbledon consultation in March, the COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated change in our town centres and high streets. By adopting this document, we provide detailed guidance for development in Wimbledon Town Centre, but it's also a prospectus to invest in the town centre for developers. We have already undergone a lengthy process of engagement and changes have been made, including to building height. Having widely consulted with residents and business over the past year, it is clear that we need to have a long-term master plan in place, both for the recovery and the long-term vision. I'd also like to draw Cabinet's attention, in the interest of transparency, in terms of the building heights plan. You may see that St George's East Block shows as 8 to 10 stories. It was intended to be part 8, 10 and 12 stories consistent with the neighbouring buildings. Officers will update this map for the council reports in November. I would also like to end by thanking all the officers in the Future Merton team who have been involved in the master plan and for their work throughout the consultation period in formulating this plan. This is a major policy document for the council with a clear strategic direction which puts the local economy and growth at the heart of our plans. In view of its importance, we recommend that the final decision be taken by council on the 18th of November, but I ask for Cabinet's support tonight. I formally move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Welton. And I now move to the Director, and that's Chris Lee, and perhaps Paul McGarry may want to add. Chris Lee, did you want to say anything?
Again, nothing to add, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Paul McGarry, did you want to say anything?
Nothing to add, Chair, but again, happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Paul. Any questions from Cabinet members? Thank you. Councillor Cooper-Marbert.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor Walton talked about the height of the building and that how it's going to be adjusted. And that just made me to wonder, because all of this was done before COVID-19 and everything else that's happening now. So is this plan flexible? And of course, he also said that this is a major document which is going forward for many years. Is it flexible in a way that other things can be adjusted?
I think I'll obviously answer that. It does allow obviously a degree of flexibility. Clearly, we can only consider the applications which are submitted for us, but it's obviously giving that guidance. We think we obviously have made a compromise in terms of 12 stories. We've listened closely to representations from residents in Wimbledon in putting this forward. But it's giving clear guidance to developers when they do submit this their applications about what the council would like to see and what they would support.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other Cabinet contributions? Councillor Ellie Stringer.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Welton. I was just going to say, as a Wimbledon councillor here, I really appreciate the huge amount of work that's gone into coming up with the vision and the plan for this, and also on engaging with residents and really listening to their feedback. And in particular, that adjustment on story heights, I think, will go down really well with the community. And I'd like to thank you for listening to our residents.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Stringer.
And thank you for that contribution. Any other contributions from Cabinet members? Okay, as we move to our recommendations, we need to be mindful. We've all had an email from the Reverend Clyde Gardner regarding some aspects around St Mark's Church. Thank you all very much. We're on item 5, the adoption of Future Wimbledon SPD. We have recommendations A to D. Are there any dissenters to recommendations A to D from my cabinet? There being no dissenters on item 5, the adoption of Wimbledon, future Wimbledon supplementary planning document, we are agreeing recommendations A to D and agreeing to the paper. Thank you all very much. We now move on to item 6, that's Merton's draft air quality supplementary planning document, and I'm afraid it's Councillor Martin Welton again.
Thank you again. I formally move the recommendations in this report. This supplementary planning document has been produced to address the health issue of air quality and to provide a consistent approach for development proposals in the borough. This is a material planning consideration when determining development proposals submitted for planning permission. The purpose of the SPD is to help developers, decision makers, agents, residents, and other interested parties to identify issues to be addressed in any development proposal application, which air quality will be a key component. It should be read in conjunction with and within the context of other relevant policies in Merton's local plans, other development plan documents, and other relevant SPDs and Merton's air quality documents where applicable. In view of the importance of this document, we have decided to accept the recommendations made by the Borough Plan Advisory Committee that this plan will run alongside the local plan from the 30th of October to the 11th of January. Within the document itself, it covers a range of topics: design, transport, sustainability, and planning applications. It also applies to developments that may have an impact on air quality. It also includes information on construction, development design, traffic reduction, electric vehicles, commercial premises, building ventilations and odour, and how to carry out an air quality assessment to support development proposals. The document also outlines the planning policy framework, explaining why air quality is important, emphasising the importance of air quality as a material planning consideration. When development proposals will need to carry out an air quality assessment to support their planning application, but also providing guidance on the process of air quality assessments, and also the Council's approach to the use of planning conditions and Section 106 agreements in respect of air quality. It is important that in assessing applications that may affect air quality in Merton or give rise to exposure to poor air quality, the Council will have regard to policies in our local development plan, including Merton's Air Quality Action Plan, but also as well the London Plan, National Planning Policies and Guidance, and also National Planning Guidance. While there is an additional requirements with regard to air quality and planning in a specific area where there is air quality focus areas, cleaner air zones, and lower emission neighbourhoods or similar, they are all considered to be areas of special importance for air quality. As a council, we have declared a climate change emergency, and it is integral that if we are to improve the air that we breathe, it has to be a consideration when we determine planning applications. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity of thanking all the officers which have been involved in this report, in particular Jason Robinson and his team. It is an extensive report, but it's a crucial report going forward. This borough has declared a climate change emergency, and having cleaner air has to be a key component of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Welton. I now turn to the Director for Environment. Chris Lee, did you want to add anything?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Thank you very much. We now turn to the Cabinet members for any Cabinet contributions. Any Cabinet contributions on this item? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you to Councillor Martin Welton for the Merton Draft Air Quality Supplementary Planning document. We are agreeing the recommendations from the Borough Plan Advisory Panel. That's recommendations A and B on the paper tabled today. Are there any dissenters to us agreeing to those recommendations A and B? There being no dissenters, we are tonight on item 6, the Air Quality SPD, agreeing to the Borough Plan Advisory Panel recommendations A and B, and thank you all very much for that. We now move on to item 7, the Council's response to Black Lives Matters. Councillor Lakshmi Attawar.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to begin by thanking the officers for their support and work in producing this report, and in particular John Dimmer and Everett Willis. As you know, equalities has always been an important factor in the Council's decision-making process. This is evident in its budget setting process in bridging the gap between the east and the west of the borough, and its programme to improve social capital in the borough too, and through the work of the Joint Consultative Committee listening to the community. However, the pandemic and the murder of George Floyd in America, which sparked off the Black Lives Matter issue, has shone a light on the inequalities in our society, not only here in Merton, but worldwide. And this just highlights that there is plenty to do. So here in Merton, we want to do everything we can to address these inequalities with the seriousness and urgency this demands. We have begun by consulting with the BAME Staff Forum to develop a medium-term strategy to ensure we have the right training and recruitment processes in place to ensure that the council staff properly reflects the borough's diversity, including at senior level. BAME Voice have been commissioned to understand the to carry out a piece of work to understand the lived experiences of the BAME communities in relation to COVID-19, and to develop a community resilience program to help improve health outcomes of the BAME community in the borough. We also will be undertaking a review of the funding to the voluntary sector to ensure that they are better supported to deliver the important work that they carry out that Merton's community value. We're also looking at other areas where we need to improve, as this work is always evolving. And we look to develop an equalities charter and a race at work charter. So I recommend that we agree the Council's response to Black Lives Matter report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Attawar, for your work on this item, and also for the way in which you engage with our BAME community. Can I also ask Rachel Wardell, our Director of Children, Schools and Families, to contribute? Rachel.
Thank you, Leader. Very little to add to what Councillor Attawar has said, except to assure members that work under this heading continues right up to date. Today we had the Corporate Equalities Steering Group, at which we agreed the governance for these actions to ensure that we continue to progress them at pace. And at that same meeting, we had confirmation from Tricia Pereira, who's currently coordinating the efforts around the BAME Forum, that work is underway to elect the co-chairs and vice-chair, and the forum will be fully active with a newly elected co-chairs and vice-chair by the end of this month, which is coincidentally Black History Month, and the objective has been to make sure that there's a successful launch that coincides with this month. So considerable work still ongoing, and we'll continue to maintain our progress.
Thank you very much, Rachel. At this stage, I would, of course, welcome and ask our Cabinet member, Edith McCauley, to contribute, but I've just been sent a message that she's unwell for tonight. We send our best wishes for a speedy recovery to Edith. From me, I just wanted to add that we are all very much in awe of the brave Black Lives Matter activist, and that is Patrick Hutchinson, who saved and helped an anti-protester in one of the marches. When I found out that Patrick Hutchinson worked in Merton but lived in Croydon, I made sure that our two boroughs, Croydon and Merton, are working to recognise that act of bravery, and that will go into our report as we see progress on that recognition. So we're on item 7, that's the Council's response to Black Lives Matters and it's recommendation A that we're moving towards, that we note and agree this response to Black Lives Matters. Are there any dissenters to us agreeing this report? I see none. That means that this council will continue to work up our response to Black Lives Matters and to engage with our BAME community. Thank you very much. That is all agreed. That's recommendation A. Thank you very much. We now move on to our last item, and that's item 8, Financial Monitoring Report 2020-21, with reference in particular to the month of August 2020. Councillor Mark Allison.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. And I'd like to, first of all, just move the recommendations, but I'd like to start by thanking all of our staff, particularly the staff in the finance team and across the departments for the work that they do to look after our finances throughout the course of the year. These financial monitoring reports are an important part of the process that we go through every month in order to ensure that we're on target with the budget, or as close as we can to as possible. It's a really important discipline that we've instilled on the council in your time as leader, and I think it's made a big difference and made us more businesslike as a result. This is month 5 of this report is for month 5 of the finances for this financial year. And I don't think anybody could argue that this hasn't been an extraordinary year for the country's economy and for the work of local councils. We've done an enormous amount of work to help our residents get through the first wave of COVID, to save lives and to keep services that are needed by our vulnerable people going. But unfortunately, there is still a great deal of uncertainty even now, and it does appear that from what's been said today that the country is slipping into a second wave, and even well-run authorities like Merton may be affected in the future. So there's a great deal of uncertainty still, but this report portrays the situation up until August, which was month 5. So it's clear that we are doing all that we can from this report to keep the costs down to the council across the board, because we know that we're going to overspend as a result of the actions that we've had to take over COVID. The report also details management action that's taking place to achieve savings and to look after the council's money properly. But COVID is affecting our ability to deliver financial savings. It goes without saying. And in particular, it's making it very difficult for us to deliver savings that we'd agreed in previous years, because quite rightly, the focus of our staff is on helping our residents rather than on delivering previously agreed savings. And today's announcements from the government and what could spin out from here will potentially make another difference to the figures as well. So there is still some good news within here as of August, but of course that's subject to change because this is August. You can see, for instance, on page 239 of the reports that we're starting to see a recovery in people paying their council tax and in businesses paying their business rates. Obviously, there were periods at the beginning of the year, particularly between March and June or July, when there were either holidays or people were unable to, there were payment holidays or people were unable to pay because they were losing their jobs or worried about losing their jobs. That's picking up again, the amount that people are paying, and we're able to see that the amount of council tax that we were short by or expecting to be short by has reduced from £7.7 million in July to £2.6 million in August. So that's an improvement of around about £5 million there. And also with business rates over the same period, there's been a drop in the shortfall from 4 million to 2.5 million. So again, that's an improvement of a further 1.5 million. So that does make a difference, and that does mean that the headline figure on this report is better than it was in previous months. The deficit for this year has reduced, but it is still reduced to an extraordinary number. That's £16 million that we're short by this year. That means that the impact on this year's finances is less than we'd anticipated. But of course, we're still worried, very worried about the impact in future years. And that's why the report asks officers to continue reprofiling the finances and also to continue taking action to keep costs down. But the reality is, and I don't want to dwell too much on this, the reality is that unless the government funds councils the full cost of what it has cost us to look after our residents during the coronavirus, then councils like us will have to make enormous savings in future years. There are going to be very big and very unwelcome cuts to our services. And we don't want that to happen, but this report lays it out that there are massive cuts on the way if the government does not fund us properly. The £16 million that I've been talking about for this year alone equates to a sixth of all of the council tax that we raise every year. We can't afford to lose that amount of money without it having an impact on services. Losses this big will have a big impact. So I'd just like to finish on that rather sour note, but hopefully the government and hopefully the opposition members who are listening on tonight's meeting will take on board the importance of government for fully compensating councils like us for the work that we've done to keep our residents safe, because otherwise services will go in future years. But returning to the report, it's a very good report, very welcome report. I appreciate the work that officers have put into it, and I move the recommendations. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. I now turn to our finance guru, Caroline Holland.
Yeah, I suppose just significant improvements on council tax collection, and also we are looking to start some tailored recovery work now that sort of some courts are beginning to prepare to set. This report is actually missing adult, so we do hope to have an update on that for next month. So these numbers are sort of latest estimates and will be subject to change. There was an announcement of a further £1 billion this afternoon for local authorities, but it's not clear whether that's to meet our current expenditure commitments, or if there is a second wave coming, there may be further expenditure requirements, particularly around any potential shielding, any potential food hub, and looking after people with social care needs, particularly, and also with children. So we're not sure if that's also then covers that further additional expenditure. So we are getting concerned the second wave that these costs could rise again, and will have further impacts then on next year's budget gap. But we are constantly keeping that under review, and there'll be an update to the November Cabinet for you, as well as some initial proposals for the Commission to have a look at for scrutiny. I just wanted to also flag that obviously with the review of the capital programme, that also links with the subcommittee item later on the agenda for tonight around the review of either the business case or the actual slippage for the capital expenditure for the sites and work that may need to be done. So we are unlikely to spend all of that capital money in this year, but that will come forward at a later date again for us to consider. Some good news, just wanted to report the application for people who are on low income and have to isolate and therefore can now eligible for grant. That process has now gone live on our website today. So if anyone has been told by Track and Trace that they need to self-isolate and would actually have a significant impact on their income, they can now make a claim, and we can consider that. So we do have £25 million for claims if you're on income support, and we have a £15 million discretionary fund, which is cash limited, but if you're not on income support, then you can also look to apply for that. We're just working through, as I said, what some of the income impacts will be, and also any knock-on impact on income going forward. We have submitted a claim for loss of income, fees and charges, and are reviewing what that does mean both for the rest of this year and also for future years, because if we can build that income back up, that limits the amount of significant savings we still need to find. As we said, sort of in the September Cabinet report, we had identified a £16 million gap next year. And then clearly within this report, it does flag that the DSG is still having considerable impacts and is now sort of 2.6 million overspent from where we thought it was going to be. So again, the DFE were meant to be coming back in to see us in November. So we're hoping to do some work just to see, I think there's been a further increase in EHCP plans than we had originally anticipated. And is that linked to COVID, or is there something else going on to still get some further information as to what is happening there? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Thank you for all your hard work and all your officers, and for liaising with the government to get some certainty that all local authorities need. I myself, as leader of the council, am working with other leaders throughout London, urging them to keep their promise when they asked us to do whatever it takes to protect our residents. And we're all saddened that they've now switched that around to say that they'll only reimburse us for what was required to do, and who decides what was required to do would probably be the government, and that's a sad state of affairs. I now turn to the Cabinet to see whether any contributions on this item from Cabinet members. Okay, well, thank you for an excellent report again, Caroline, and Councillor Mark Allison. There's a wealth of information there. It does not change the fact that we are looking for £6 million, which is quite a tough ask, but we'll be businesslike and we'll do our level best, but there are some tough decisions if the government does not step in and do as it promised. So we're on our final item in this Cabinet meeting, Financial Monitoring Report 2020-2021, homing in on month 5, August 2020. Recommendations A to D are there for us. Are there any dissenters to agreeing recommendations A to D? There being no dissenters, that's agreed. Item 8 is agreed, and recommendations A to D are also agreed. That concludes our meeting. I want to thank everyone very much for attending this Cabinet meeting. Thank you and goodbye.